I highly suggest that you watch this video before you eat another egg. There is a huge difference between the conventional eggs that you get at the grocery store versus something that is called pasture-raised organic eggs. There's a huge difference. And that's what I'm going to get in today. Unfortunately, even the expiration date is not regulated. So, in other words, companies can just omit that little date on the box. And it's not unlikely that these eggs could sit on the shelf for 60 days. That's 2 months before you end up buying them. But one of the things that really shocked me when I did a deep dive in this topic is the feeds that they feed the chickens, the animal feeds. Okay, what are in these animal feeds? Yes, they have GMO corn and soy. And that's very unnatural because these chickens were meant to consume bugs, insects, worms, flowers, seeds, things like that. But I found out that there's another ingredient called animal byproducts, or another name for that would be animal protein products. That would include the carcass of another animal, feathers, organs, blood, skin, even of the same species, and manure. And at first, I'm like, wait a second, that can't be true. But as I dug further into this topic, it's true. These animals are fed shit. Now, of course, you also get an option on the label sometimes. They're fed vegetarian feeds, right? Well, I want to bring up a point about vegetarian feeds, and that would be corn and soy, no animal products, okay? But I also want to point out that it's very unnatural for a chicken just to consume grains without bugs, worms, things like that, which, by the way, are not vegan. And chickens are actually omnivores. So that leads me to the next topic about eggs relating to the color of the egg yolk. Some people have this idea that if you look at the color of the egg, it'll tell you the health of that egg, right? It makes total sense until you find out that they actually sell and use on a regular basis colored pigments, synthetic dyes to make the yolk look a certain color. Because if you don't do that, the consumer is not going to buy it. So, honestly, this is just a way of tricking the consumer. The name of one of the dyes is called xanthans. And at least in Europe, they've restricted this to a certain amount because they found that it causes crystals that develop on the retina. Now, as far as in America, I have no idea. But in nature, when you have a natural chicken that consumes what it's supposed to eat, you get a really nice gold yellow color of that yolk. That is all the natural antioxidants, especially the two nutrients called lutein as well as zeaxanthin, which are all necessary for your eye, for the retina. And so, an egg that has less of this rich pigment, the less of those antioxidants you're going to have. And there's not just those two. I mean, there's probably over 600 different carotenoids. They use dyes also to color the meat of the chicken to make sure it looks like a healthy chicken skin. I mean, it's just crazy what's happening. I mean, even if you go to the grocery store and you buy a chicken breast, right? Just look on the back of the label. You'll see that in some cases they add flavoring. I'm not kidding. To make it taste like chicken. So basically, we're tricking people into making it taste good, look good, without really focusing on the quality. Now, I've talked about the chicken feed a little bit, but what about the environment, the space, right? You have different terms they throw around like free range and cage free and pasture raised. The first thing you need to know is that conventional chickens are in cages and they never see the light of day. And you're talking about probably roughly having up to 80 to 100,000 of these chickens in one barn, in one space. And it's also been studied that the cortisol greatly spikes in that situation. That can't be healthy for the chicken. And then we have something called cage free. It sounds a lot better, but all they do is they remove the cage, but they don't change the spacing. So, in order to be cage free, you actually have to have a foot of space for that chicken. So, you're still shoulder to shoulder, you're still in a closed space. Then you have free range, right? What does free range mean? Well, for free range, you get about 2 square feet of space. You have some limited outdoor access. There might be a hole in the barn where it can stick its head out to maybe see outside. And if I'm not mistaken, free range is antibiotic free. Whereas cage-free, they can use antibiotics like conventional. And then we get to pasture-raised. This is the best because they get 108 square feet of space per chicken. Much better. And they are allowed to go out and forage for bugs and worms and insects and flowers and things like that. And even if you compare pasture raised to conventional, there is at least 3 times as much vitamin A, retinol. There's more choline, there's more B2, there's more folate, there's 3 times as much vitamin E. And overall, you're going to get more fat soluble vitamins. Now, I do want to mention antibiotics for a second because you might say, well, they don't really use antibiotics anymore. Well, worldwide, out of all the sale of antibiotics, 66% of all of those antibiotic sales are sold to farm animals. And in America, 80% of all antibiotics are used for farm animals. So, of course, when you get eggs, when you buy eggs, make sure it says antibiotic free, or even better yet, just do organic, pasture raised eggs. That way, you include a better environment for that chicken as well as a better source of feed because organic has to come without those pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, non GMO, which is good, but they also have no hormones, no antibiotics, no arsenic, and no poultry slaughter byproducts. So, in other words, those animal byproducts that include the waste are not in organic. Now, you might say, well, they're more expensive. Yeah, they're a few more dollars. Well, guess what? It's worth it. And even the reason why they use antibiotics, they use it as a growth hormone. That's what they're using to grow them in a very fast rate. Now, I was driving down the freeway a while ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and I got behind a huge tractor trailer filled with chickens in cages. And I had to really make sure that I kept my eyes on the road because I was looking at these chickens, just terrible, terrible, terrible situation because these chickens did not look healthy at all. And they were in complete terror. One last thing about these chicken eggs. Sometimes you'll see omega-3 enriched, okay? And that is a marketing gimmick. You don't really know the source of omega-3 that they're enriching these chickens with. Personally, I think you'd be better off just focusing on the pastured raised organic chicken eggs. Or better yet, if you have the space for them and you can put chickens in your backyard, I would highly recommend to do that. When people come over to my house and they stay over and I feed them the eggs, wow, it's incredible. They're like, wow, these are so satisfying. They're so delicious. They're amazing. So I highly recommend you think about maybe getting your own chickens. So now that you know a bit more on differentiating the type of egg that you really need, let's talk about some other benefits of the egg from this video right here.